Now let us talk about electrolytic cell. Electrolytic cell, I've drawn a simple electrolytic cell which is right here. This is a simple electrolytic cell with its components. We have the battery, and we have the anode, and we have the cathodes, and also we have electrolytes. We discussed much about electrolytes, and we said electrolytes, once these are in solution state or molten state, they conduct electricity. Those are called electrolytes. They dissociate into ions completely to form ions so as they may conduct electricity. Now, this is electrolytic cell. It is apparatus. This is the apparatus in which electrolysis is carried out. The apparatus which we use to conduct electrolysis, we call it electrolytic cell. Because this is the components. These are the components of electrolytic cell. We should have battery, which is the source of electricity, and we should have anode, and we should have cathode, and we should have electrolytes. Now, this is a simple electrolytic cell in which now we conduct electrolysis. When we are carrying electrolysis, the apparatus that we use, we call it electrolytic cell. Now, a symbol, this symbol, here it is, represents a battery. And a battery have got a longer thin component and a shorter thick components. This longer one represents positive terminal, and this shorter one and thicker represents negative terminal. Now, in the battery, we have positive terminal and we have negative terminal. The shorter one represents negative terminal, and the longer one represents the positive terminal. So, the symbol, this one, represents the battery, which we have the positive terminal and the negative terminal. And it is very important to understand the positive terminal and the negative terminal, because we have something called electrodes. Electrodes are the components of the cell which make contact with the electrolytes. The component of the cell, this is a wire. It is not directly contact with the electrolytes. And also this is the conductor. It is not directly contact with the electrolytes. Now, we have electrodes which are in direct contact with electrolytes. Now, these are called electrodes. Now, electrodes are the components of the cell which make contact with the electrolytes. Means, for those who are connected with the conductor from the positive terminal to the electrodes, we call them electrodes. And which one is connected to the negative terminal and the conductor, the conductor and the electrodes is called the electrodes. Now, electrodes we have two of them. The one which is connected to the positive terminal of the battery, and the other is the one which is connected to the negative terminal of the battery. And they have got names. Now, electrodes are the components of the cell which make contact with the electrolytes. Kwa hiyo hizi ambazo zinaunganishwa kwenye conductor kuja kwenye electrolytes ndio tunaita electrodes. Kama electrodes ziko mbili, kuna ile ambayo imeunganishwa kwenye negative na kuna ile ambayo inakuwa connected kwenye positive. Ile ambayo inakuwa connected kwenye positive tunaita anode, na ile ambayo inakuwa connected kwenye negative terminal of the battery tunaita cathodes. And these are the ones which are connected to the electrolytes, and that is why we say electrodes which is attached to the negative terminal of the battery is called the cathode. That is, the electrons enters the electrolytes. Now, here it is electrons leaves the battery, and therefore they enter in the electrolytes. Electrons enter in the electrolytes through cathode. But electrons leaves the electrolytes through the anode. And that is why we say now the electrodes which is attached to to the positive terminal is called the anode. But which is attached, the one which is attached to the positive terminal is called the cathodes. And it is where electron enters the electrolytes. But where the electrons leave the electrolytes, we just call it anode. Now the anode is the one which is connected to the positive terminal. Now we say the electrons which attach to the negative terminal, we call it cathode. And the one which is connected to the positive terminal, we call it anode. Now the anode is the one which is attached or connected to the positive terminal of the battery. And the cathode, the one which is attached to the negative terminal of the battery. Therefore, this is the electrodes. This is the electrodes. This is electrode and this is electrode. Anode and cathodes. Now, this is what we call it a simple electrolytic cell, which consists of batteries, electrodes, and also electrolytes. Now, the conduction of electricity is passed through the electrolytes by using these cathode and anodes. So, in absence of the cathode and anodes, there is no what we call it electrolysis. And that is why we say ions are discharged at the electrodes. Now, ions are discharged at the electrode, means at the anode and at the cathode, there is a discharge of the electrodes to form, the discharge of the electrolytes to form what we call it ions. Now, ions are formed at anode and at cathode. And we have battery as the source of electricity. And that is why we say oxidation at the anode means oxidation takes place at the anodes and reduction takes place at the cathodes. Now at the cathode there is what we call it reduction. Here there is reduction, but at here there is oxidation. Means oxidation takes place at the anode and the reduction takes place at the cathode. So you got to be very careful when talking about electrolytic cell. Electrolytic cell, in short, is apparatus in which we use it to conduct electrolysis. That is called electrolytic cell. And it has got parts or components which are the battery, anode, and cathode. Cathode and anode are called electrodes. And these electrodes we consider about the attachment. Now this is attached to the positive terminal and this is connected to the negative terminal and we call it cathodes. So whenever we're talking about electrolysis, we'll be talking about the electrolytic cell where we conduct the electrolysis. So electrolytic cell is something very important for us to learn about electrolysis because it is the simple apparatus that we use to conduct electrolysis. Now, in the absence of electrolytic cell, no electrolysis because it must be conducted in the electrolytic cell to produce what we wanted because we want oxidation and reduction. So we want to discharge the electrolytes. Now that's all about electrolytic cell.